second time this week, the NDP were caught flat-footed and lying. Now, this time they were lying about my investigation into the disastrous mishandling of the water bomber contracts last spring. The bungling of these water bomber contracts last spring by bureaucrats in the Agriculture and Forestry Ministry was caused directly by Rachel Notley's $5 million cut to the ministry's wildfire fighting resources. You see, Notley just couldn't find a single government worker not hauling their own weight to fire, but she could find money to cut from the budget meant to protect our forested communities here in Alberta. It was appalling. And when I say bungling, I mean royal and epic screw-ups with these water bomber contracts. The cuts caused the bureaucrats to try to rewrite these contracts for fewer wildfire fighting days. 93 days down from 123. The confusion caused the casual water bomber contracts to not even be posted at all as Alberta headed into one of the worst wildfire seasons in years. The cuts caused such a wreck in the ministry that they had to cancel all the water bomber contracts on April 22nd, and then they re-tendered them on May 2nd, the day after the Fort Mac fire was first spotted. It was a disaster. It was one mistake after another after another. And now the NDP are lying about what I uncovered, and they're doing it right in the legislature. It's outrageous. Just watch this exchange between Wildrose MLA Todd Loewen and the NDP Minister of Municipal Affairs, Danielle Larrivee. Here.
Given that once it was found that the tendering of these air tanker contracts were so poorly handled, and given that the department then tried to incorporate confidentiality clauses so fire companies would stop talking to the media in opposition about this government bungling, to the Premier, were these actions a direct result of ill-advised budget cuts? And why did you ask for these gag orders that were clearly not in the deals before?
Good question. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the contracts that are being talked about were actually for the 2017 fire season, so it had absolutely no implication for the fire season this summer. Mr. Speaker, certainly we provide contracts for baseline firefighter services to provide a bare minimum of that. However, we have always had emergency funding available to be utilized to work with our partners from across this country and around the world to ensure that in every single wildfire, every single resource will be there. And Mr. Speaker, that happened this summer, and I'm proud of the work our wildfire fighters did.
Larrivee says the contracts were for the 2017 firefighting year. She's wrong. And unfortunately for Larrivee, I have the emails from December 2015 to May 2016 to prove that she's wrong and that she's just making excuses. Larrivee is expecting us all to believe her made-up excuses instead of our own lying eyes. Here's the original request for proposal from the original contracts. The RFP issue date, January 15, 2016. The RFP closing date and time, March 1st, 2016, no later than 1500 hours Alberta time. These would be the contracts that ended up being cancelled on April 22nd. They were for the 2016 year. Now, here is an email from one ag and forestry bureaucrat to another. They're talking about how they're going to re-tender the contracts because they just screwed them up so badly. The email reads, "Looks like we will have to cancel the RFP and reissue for a quick turnaround," dated April 20th. They needed a quick turnaround because they were already into the 2016 fire season. And Ag and Forestry did cancel those contracts 2 days later and then reissued them on May 2nd, one day before the wildfire that swept into Fort McMurray. And here is the letter to advise the water bomber companies about the changes to the 2016 fire season because of the cuts. The letter is dated one day after the cuts in the provincial budget. The letter reads, "On April 14, 2016, Alberta's provincial budget was announced. Budget 2016 reflects the tough economic conditions faced by the province and involves budget reductions to programs including wildfire management. This letter is to advise that as a result of the budget reductions, Agriculture and Forestry is reducing the charter periods for all of its air tanker contracts starting in the 2016 fire season." So yeah, sorry, Minister Larrivee, it wasn't 2017. It was 2016 that the NDP screwed up all the water bomber contracts with their cuts to fire safety. And Minister Danielle Larrivee is either confused or just not telling the truth. Now, if she's confused, she shouldn't be making this stuff up as she goes along. And if she's not telling the truth, well, it makes me wonder what else the NDP are hiding. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. To help me pay for the ridiculous fees Rachel Notley charges me for these Freedom of Information documents, go to whatissehiding.com and donate today.